Welcome to Quora Anonymous. If this is your first time and you like the video, please like and subscribe. If you would like to read along, turn on closed captioning with the 3 dots in the upper right corner. Now, let's begin. I don't usually answer questions like this, but I will take a stab at it. In my clinical practice, I see lives ruined from not using a condom that costs only 30 cents to $1 each. For that little money, or that little protection, people give up the rest of their lives. I practice in California, so, just to give people a context. In the state of California, the family court has a lot of power. It can dictate your life, day in and day out. The court ruling will have long-lasting effects on you. Often I hear from a young 18 years old or 19 years old girl, people are maturing at later age now, so I would not call her woman just yet, in my office, saying that she is pregnant. The attitude tends to be very nonchalant and not serious. She would say, well, this is my baby. I guess I will keep the baby. The dad of the baby, well, he is not reliable. He does not need to be in my baby's life. He is not good enough for me to keep on dating him. Immediately, I see red flags everywhere. I see landmines. I hear this alarm blasting in my head. I get serious and ask to talk about this matter more. But you will be surprised how little attention I get from the person sitting across from me. In general, there is one level of standard that the other person needs to cross over or meet for you to consider being in a committed monogamous boy-girlfriend relationship with that person. That standard or that bar should be raised even higher if you two want to get engaged. Then of course, you have to raise that standard immensely higher if you want to get married to that person. Finally, for someone to be the father or mother of your child, the standard has to be the highest. No question about that. That standard should be sky high. I'm serious. But people keep on mixing these standards up all the time. Their standards get turned upside down. I don't get it. Where are the priorities? You can get married and break up easily if you two don't have kids. Sure, a couple years of alimony support here and here. That's it. Clean breakup. If you have kids together, even if you are not married, the other party can always go to Family Court of California to request or report anything: physical custody, legal custody, child support, accusation of sexual abuse, accusation of physical abuse, accusation of emotional neglect, etc., for the next 18 years. It does not matter what is true or not when someone accuses you. 90% of what our society today believes is all based on perception. Truth does not matter. Perception is everything. Trials are done outside of the court system on a daily basis all the time, through social media, through CNN and Fox News, etc. And every single complaint will have to be investigated. When you have a kid with someone, it is for the rest of your life that you two's lives will forever be intertwined. Therefore, when I hear someone say, well, I'm pregnant, but I guess I should just have the baby and tell the dad go away, I get very alarmed. Let us say that the father of the baby is currently in jail for grand theft auto. 2.5 years later he gets out of jail. He can easily file a petition in the family court for visitation and custody. Of course the court will not grant him 50% custody right away, but the Family Court of California clearly states that it believes, in the best interest of the child, both parents should be in the child's life. So if he is on good behavior, and he did not commit a violent offense, for that jail time, he will get 50% of the custody after a few months of supervised visits. Then let us say that the mom is now working at a doctor's office as an assistant, making $35,000 a year. The father just got out of jail, living with his parents. The father now has 50% custody, and what comes next is, he will request for child support payments. And the mom has to pay. California is very liberal. It does not discriminate the father and a mother, based on traditional gender roles. Okay, let us reverse the situation. The dad is the one who has it all together. He is raising 2 kids on his own. being a local police officer while the mom has been in and out of drug rehab. Finally, when the kids are 7 years and 4 years old, she is clean. She goes to the family court of California and requests 50% custody. She has voluntarily subjected herself to random urine drug screens and all the screenings have come back negative for the past 6 months. Now she has 50% custody. Guess what she is going to do next? Ask for child support payments. Then let us say in 3 months time, she starts dating a con artist. And all of a sudden they concoct a false accusation that the dad, who is a police officer, has been sexually molesting the 4-year-old daughter for the past 6 months. They file a complaint with the Child Protective Service and the Family Court of California. Do you know what will happen to the father's career as a police officer in today's age? Now, I have gone somewhat extreme in my examples, but these examples happen every single day. Around you and me. All the time. And all of these can be prevented by just using a condom that costs 30 cents at the heat of the moment. That's it. There is no trick. One small mistake and you are stuck with the wrong man or woman for the rest of your life. And you are ruined. P.S. I have not gone into calculating how expensive it is to raise a child in California either. You can do the math. Is it really worth not getting that 30-cent condom? This isn't exactly a life ruiner, but it certainly ruined most of my high school experience. I did synchronized swimming since I was 11, and over the years, got to know my fellow swimmers well. The second year I was on a team with a girl who clearly had mental health issues, but her parents almost refused to do anything about it. She had no emotional control and would throw tantrums in the middle of a public pool when she didn't get her way. She would sweet talk the instructors and try to manipulate them to let her get whatever she wanted, and one of our older instructors would let it slide right through. The second year was fine for me. I avoided her at all costs, and she was only part of the team for half the year. The third year, however, she was on the same team as me. Now, I wasn't the only one annoyed. Even our instructor wasn't taking any of her bullshit. I quite liked her. She stood up for herself and our team. Didn't let anyone talk down to us during competitions. But I guess this really pissed on the girl, and almost every day she threw some sort of tantrum which affected the entire team. Towards the mid part of the year she started to lash out more, and her tantrums got violent. She would start kicking people and trying to scratch them. She would make up lies about other teammates claiming they hurt her, or said mean things when no one ever did. This is when I got the harshest blow of them all. It started off as asking me to pass her a weight block, about 8 pounds, which I did quite carefully because they are heavy and you don't want to get hit or dropped on by one. The second I gave her the brick, she quite literally threw it at my face. It just barely hit my jaw. I was able to catch it before it did any damage. In shock, I handed her back the block and was about to go tell the instructor about it when she dropped the brick on her head. She had a smirk, she knew what she doing, and then immediately after yelled about how I threw a brick at her. People saw what happened. I was able to be backed up by my team, and she was taken home. She came back about a week later, and her parents were profusely apologizing, yada yada. Anyways, we were doing some warm-up stretches and the instructors called us in when we were done. I accidentally dropped my nose plug, a small device that keeps water out of your nose while you're upside down, so of course I swam down quickly to find it. Once I grabbed it and headed back up, I saw someone above me. I didn't think anything of it until just as I surfaced, it was her again. I got one breath of air out before she pushed me under the water. She quite literally put her feet on my shoulders and tried to force me under the water. I was at least 50 pounds heavier and a much more experienced swimmer, so thankfully I was able to push her off and not drown. The first thing she did when she swam back to everyone else, she told them I attacked her, tried to drown her, and then bite her. This girl was a living nightmare. I had almost been killed, and she had the audacity to make this claim. Guess what else? They believed her. Everyone thought I was the girl who tried to kill another girl because I hated her. Those rumors spread past our small synchro club and into the high schools in the city. We were all roughly from the same area, so naturally friends of friends got the word spread around, and suddenly I found myself being hated by more than 3,500 people. I was the victim of her illness, and in the end I got the blame. My mistake in all this? Not standing up for myself. Not once did I fight back, nor try to tell the truth. I let her get away with everything, and it's my biggest regret in life. I worked with a man whose life fell apart quite dramatically over a few weeks. He was a nice guy and I really liked him. His name was Ivor, and I feel terrible about what happened to him. He and his wife were drinking together one evening, and they started arguing. So he went to sleep in his car. A few hours later, the police knocked on his window and woke him up. Although he had not been driving, the keys were in the ignition, and he had been sleeping in the driver's seat. They breathalyzed him, and he was still very drunk. As they now had him for drunk driving, they had the right to search his car. In the car they found a Kosh that he kept for protection. I doubt he would ever use it. But, unfortunately, they are illegal, and he was now in trouble for carrying an offensive weapon. His wife was angry at him so wouldn't let him come home, so he had to sleep on a friend's sofa. By the way, Ivor was not a young man, he was in his early 60s. Due to his stress, he carried on drinking. He started missing a lot of work, which was bad. What was worse is that one day, he did turn up to work, but very drunk. He worked for about 30 minutes, until his managers called him in the office, and after a heated argument, he was fired. So we never saw Ivor again. This whole thing played out over about 3 weeks. So in 3 weeks, Ivor lost his wife, driver's license, job, and got a criminal record. In his 60s. Ivor was a good guy and he used to have foreign students stay at his house. Just before he got fired he had Japanese students, and would bring Japanese food in for us to try. I often wonder what the Japanese people staying at his house made of his meltdown. On the 4th of July, 16 years ago, I was at a fireworks show where parents accidentally killed their own child. They had 6 children. One was a 6-month-old baby. They were at a fireworks show. It was really hectic. I don't remember the exact details. A lot of people were there. The dad had gone off on his own to buy snacks for the kids. He took the baby along. Mom was sitting on a blanket with the rest of her kids, ready to watch the fireworks show. Someone from the show asked Mom to move her car. It was in the way. Mom left the oldest child in charge of all the younger ones on the grassy hill on their blanket. She walked over and hopped into the car. At the same time, Dad had come back to the car after getting snacks to get a lawn chair out of the trunk. Mom and Dad didn't see each other. Mom was already in the car. Dad set the baby carrier down on the ground behind the car, not knowing Mom was in the car ready to back up. I'm not sure how it happened. Dad was either distracted talking to someone, or busy setting snacks down. But while he wasn't looking, Mom backed the car over the baby. It was horrible, chaotic, and devastating. The baby was only partially backed over, and survived for 2 days. He died after that. The pain of his parents was indescribable. After that, an investigation ensued of the death of their child. They were found innocent, ruling that it was a horrible accident. But being investigated for the murder of their child made the death much worse and the pain last much longer. Surprisingly, the couple did stay together. A lot of times, couples blame each other in events like that, and have to separate after something so painful, or so I've heard. However, they don't celebrate the 4th of July anymore. It's a horrible reminder of the death of their baby boy. Every year I see a post from them commemorating his death on Independence Day. My boyfriend used to work at one of those large US banks that I'm not sure I can name. Let's call it bank for simplicity's sake. So the branch manager had worked at bank for years. And she worked hard to get where she was. She started out as a mere teller. Undoubtedly, she was smart, but that didn't stop her from making a stupid mistake that, as most would agree, ruined her life. It was a hot summer day, so naturally, each and every customer that came in that day helped themselves to the water cooler for a cup of water. In fact, the water cooler was so popular that day that by early afternoon there were no more plastic cups left at the branch. I'm sure you can imagine how frustrated the customers were with not being able to enjoy complimentary water. The branch manager, being as proactive as always, decided to take the matter into her own hands. You see, the procedure was that in the event that the branch runs out of cups, they should be ordered from corporate. But that could take up to a week and they needed cups as soon as possible. There were plenty of stores around the branch that sold plastic cups, but the branch manager didn't have any cash on her. She could have withdrawn the money from her account or asked a coworker, but she did something completely different instead. For a reason that remains a mystery, she asked one of the tellers to pull $5 out of their drawer. A big policy no-no at bank. Minutes later, the branch boasted a brand new stock of plastic cups. Hours later, the branch manager was fired. Turns out someone snitched to upper management right after it happened, and the branch manager got invited for a meeting at HQ, where she was told she was being let go for stealing $5. She made a lot of customers happy that day, but was it worth it? We used to go to our school by school bus. He was senior to me, and was in my brother's class 10th. They were good friends. We three often used to sit together in the bus and he and my brother used to tease me. One day he came to school on his brand new bike which he had got as his birthday present from his dad. He was very excited, and was showing his bike to every other student at the school. I was standing with my brother when he congratulated him and wished him for his birthday. I listened other boys of his class encouraging him for the ride. "Mon bro, let's have a fast ride." "Who cares for the boring class?" they were laughing. "Yeah. We will teach you the bike stunt," as of Akshay Kumar style. Few of his seniors who were standing there joined the conversation and provoked him for the ride. My brother asked him to come with us for the class and reluctantly, but he joined us. Oh. Mama's boy. Don't have guts. Ride bicycle. Bike is not for your class. They were laughing hard. My brother was telling him not to listen to them and not to try those stunts. Well, they continued their conversation and I moved to my class. I didn't see him next day in school. After few days my brother told me that he fell down with his bike while practicing a stunt with those seniors. We went to see him in the hospital. He was lying on the bed in ICU. His vertebral column was fractured which damaged his spine. He remained in hospital for several weeks. He underwent quadriplegia, complete paralysis of both upper and lower limbs. After treatment for several years his condition got somewhat improved, but still he cannot walk or hold things properly. He used to be on bed and wheelchair. It has been almost 7 years of the incident, but whenever I think about him my heart aches. His dream was to become a naval officer, to explore the sea and the world. And now, his life has constricted to a single room, and to the garden outside. He might be thinking and cursing himself that how his life would have been if he hadn't gone for that stunt just to prove others. He was talented and dedicated enough to live his dreams, but this single mistake of doing stunt on being provoked destroyed his life. Don't let others to control your mind and provoke you to do something according to their choices. You don't have to prove others that you can do even if you don't want to. Remember, just one mistake and you have to pay for it for each moment of your life. In 1997 to 2001, I was living in Dallas and had a number of black friends. One of them, a young female around 30, used to hang out at my apartment. We became good friends, and one night, after going out to dinner, we were driving back to my apartment when we were pulled over for a cracked headlight. I identified myself, showed my badge and ID. I was carrying a firearm, but not on duty, and after telling me to get the headlight fixed, the officer sent us on our way. He ran me to make sure I was who I said I was, etc., but didn't run my passenger. As I was pulling away from the curb, I noticed she was visibly shaken up by the encounter. I thought that was odd, as it was a very routine encounter with a fellow officer, and no cause for alarm at all. Initially, she wouldn't say anything, but after we got back to my place, she told me that she was afraid the police were going to harass her. Why is that? Turns out she had a felony record for something really dumb. A few years earlier, she had given a friend of hers a ride to the bank to cash a paycheck. While she was waiting outside the bank for him to return, the police show up, get her out of the car, and arrest her. Turns out that her friend had stolen several blank payroll checks from where he was working, and tried to cash the forged checks at the bank. The bank was a smaller bank in Dallas that knew all of their customers and knew the signature was forged, so they simply called the police and stalled until they showed up and arrested him. They take my friend in for interrogation. She tells them what happened. Of course, since she was young, female, and black, they don't believe a word of it. They kept her in an interrogation room, questioning her for several hours. She started crying and said that she just wanted to go home, that she had done nothing wrong. No problem, just sign these papers and we'll take you home. I'm sure you can see where this is going. She received probation for felony check forgery, since what she had signed was a confession to being an accomplice to the forgery. Once you have a felony conviction on your record, there are a lot of things you can't do. I advised her to contact an attorney to see what could be done under the circumstances. I don't know if she ever did. Just doing a favor for someone wound up with her having a felony on her record. A real shame. It did not just ruin her life, it killed her. There was a girl in my class, I won't name her, and I had known her since class 1. She was never a brilliant student, but she was hardworking, and her hard work slowly started reflecting in her report card as she climbed up the ranks and came first in our school in class 10. But things started to change when we were in class 11. She fell in love. Now falling for someone is totally fine, but she fell for a guy who had a really bad reputation. Under his influence she transformed from a soft-spoken, studious girl to a bold, ill-mannered girl. She started drinking, and often bunked tuitions. The day she failed the first term examinations was the day they celebrated their 3 months anniversary. Things went by like this when one fine morning I got to know from a friend that they broke up. She was devastated after that and slowly slipped into depression. She stopped coming to school and broke contacts with all her friends and kept herself locked up in her room. Her parents were very supportive and understood the situation. They asked her to drop that year and start afresh in a new school. But a month later she was found dead in her room. She hanged herself to death. Reason? She was pregnant. Yes, you heard me right. Her relationship with that guy had escalated to the next level, and she got pregnant. So what was her mistake? She did not realize that her career is more important than that guy. She did not realize that the guy for whom her body is more important than her dropping grades is not the right one. She did not realize that no matter what happens she can always confide in her parents. And lastly, she did not realize that no mistake means the end of life. She didn't just kill herself that day, she ruined 2 more lives. As someone who did time, I can't say my life was ruined by a small mistake, but it definitely was stalled, and the course significantly changed, and along with that a lot of possibilities were ruined. But I did time with a lot of people who I would say had their lives ruined from a small mistake. I had this cellmate for a while and eventually I found out his crime. He was 24 when he came into the system, about the same time as me, and we were about the same age, but the crime happened when he was 20. He'd been talking to this girl online he thought was 17, but turned out to be 14. It wouldn't have turned into anything, they had just talked on the phone and online, and never met in real life, but she sent him some nude pictures of herself, and a video of herself masturbating. This was before he found out her real age, but he had fallen in love with her, so he kept talking to her. Eventually, about a year later, they had started to arrange to meet in real life, but suddenly she broke off conversation with him, and he didn't hear from her for over a year. He was heartbroken at first but eventually moved on with his life. He got a girlfriend his age, and they got serious quick. He was moving forward with his life when a knock came on his door one day. It was law enforcement, specifically federal and state law enforcement. Turns out this girl wasn't just talking to him, she had been talking to lots of men on the internet, and one of them turned out to be a undercover cop. At first the cops thought she was actually an adult male trying to lure other underage girls by pretending to be the same age, because she had some explicit conversations with another undercover cop pretending to be a minor girl. So, they basically set her up thinking she was actually an adult male when in reality she really was an underage girl. Long story short, they eventually showed up at her door, served a warrant to her shocked parents, and seized all of their electronic devices. They did forensics and that's how my former cellmate got tracked down, because on the girl's computer were all their conversations, pictures of him he had sent her, and the picture/video she had sent him, along with many other men, and records showing that it had been sent. When they took all of his electronics, they were able to recover the files and chat conversations via forensics. Even though he had deleted them, nothing you delete is ever really deleted, FYI. They charged him with receipt of CP and enticement. He received 15 years in prison, which he is still serving. The really messed up thing is that he is not a citizen, but he was a legal resident. He had a green card. He moved from Bolivia with his family when he was 3 years old, so he has no real connection or memory of the place at all. He is as American as he can be. Barely speaks Spanish. He is from New York City so actually has a thick New York accent. He was actually a month away from gaining citizenship when he was charged. So when he finishes his time, about 3 or 4 years from now, he will be deported to Bolivia, a country that he doesn't know, has never even visited, and isn't really truly his home. He doesn't even really have family there anymore. Currently, he is in a private ICE immigration prison doing the rest of his time and those prisons are notoriously bad. He'll be there until he is deported. So that would be an example. When he was in his 20s, my uncle got involved in a biker gang. Maybe that was his small mistake. He was living in California in a pay-by-the-week motel and there was a party going on that was starting to get pretty big. This was back in the 70s so think Led Zeppelin blasting on the radio, bikers hanging out, getting pissed drunk. Ugly colored cars and pretty girls with goofy haircuts running around. At one point my uncle decided he was going to take his sound system inside. Maybe this was his small mistake. This didn't go over well with some of the other people there, so a fight broke out. At one point someone threw a big jug of wine at his wife and hit her directly in the back. She dropped instantly, so he dragged her inside, went and grabbed a knife, another, maybe not so small, mistake, and stabbed 2 men in chest with the steak knife. One of them died in the hospital the next day. In court, my uncle, being charged with murder and attempted murder, decided to plead not guilty. Maybe this was his small mistake. Instead of giving him 7 years for manslaughter, he was sentenced to 34 years to life in a state penitentiary. Today, 34 years later, some people would say my uncle's life is ruined. He is now in his late 60s and has spent more than half of his life in prison. He is completely institutionalized and still thinks about prison all of the time. However, if you ask my uncle, he's happy. He has a fiancée who loves him, a dog, a car, a motorcycle and a nice home. He takes rides on his bike and spends time with the family and the woman he loves. My uncle's life is not ruined. The moral of the story here, there is no one small mistake that ruins someone's life. We all make decisions every day that affect our future in ways we will never understand. I could be in your shoes if I was born in the same circumstances as you and vice versa. That's not to say destiny is predetermined, because it isn't. We design our own fates. But more outside factors influence lives than we often realize. Even after someone faces serious consequences from what can seem like small mistakes, that person can bounce back. Their life isn't ruined. You can always choose happiness over misery, though I'm sure it's harder for some. Never give up. It's never too late to start working toward the life you want. The day your life is ruined is the day you die. No sooner. If you made it this far, you owe it to yourself to subscribe.